Friends, we often find ourselves drawn to stories of triumph, stories of despair, stories that teach us about ourselves and the world around us. And perhaps no book is as replete with such stories as the Bible. But the Bible isn't just a collection of tales, it's a tapestry woven with words, each thread carrying weight, meaning, and consequence. One such word found throughout the Old Testament is Hamas. Now, Hamas isn't just any word. It's a word that reverberates with the weight of history, a word that speaks of brokenness, injustice, and the consequences of straying from the path of righteousness. In its original Hebrew, Hamas carries the heavy connotation of violence, oppression, and the perversion of justice. It speaks of a world where the strong prey on the weak, where the innocent are silenced, and where the scales of justice are tipped in favor of the wicked. In this exploration, we embark on a journey to understand the profound meaning of Hamas. We'll delve into its linguistic roots, examine its presence in the narratives of the Old Testament, and uncover its theological implications. To truly grasp the gravity of Hamas, we must first understand its place within the linguistic tapestry of the Bible. The Hebrew language, known for its poetic beauty and depth, is rich in nuance, and Hamas is no exception. Strong's Concordance, a renowned biblical lexicon, defines Hamas as violence, wrong, injustice. It's a word that speaks of a breach in the natural order, a deviation from the path of righteousness. It's a word that signifies not just physical harm, but also the more insidious forms of oppression, exploitation, and the denial of basic human dignity. But Hamas isn't limited to individual acts of wrongdoing. It can also describe a systemic evil, a pervasive corruption that infects societies and nations. It speaks of a world where the powerful trample the rights of the weak, where greed and self-interest reign supreme, and where the cries of the oppressed fall on deaf ears. Theological sources further illuminate the depths of Hamas. It's often associated with the concept of sin, a deliberate turning away from God and His commandments. It represents a rejection of the divine order, a choice to embrace chaos and injustice over righteousness and compassion. In essence, Hamas stands in stark contrast to the very character of God, who is depicted throughout the Bible as a God of justice, mercy, and righteousness. He is a God who hears the cries of the oppressed, who defends the cause of the widow and the orphan, and who demands that justice roll down like waters. The Old Testament, with its rich tapestry of stories and teachings, provides numerous examples of Hamas in action. These narratives, often poignant and heartbreaking, serve as cautionary tales illustrating the devastating consequences of violence, injustice, and the perversion of righteousness. One such example can be found in Genesis chapter 6, verses 11 through 13, where we encounter a world consumed by Hamas. The text tells us, "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. This pervasive Hamas, this rampant wickedness and violence, grieved the heart of God, ultimately leading to the cataclysmic flood." In Psalm 11 verse 5, King David, a man after God's own heart, cries out against those who perpetrate Hamas. "The Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence." Here, Hamas is explicitly linked to wickedness, highlighting the inherent connection between violence and a heart far from God. The prophet Habakkuk, grappling with the injustice he witnesses in his own time, also decries the prevalence of Hamas. In Habakkuk chapter 1 verses 2 and 3, he laments, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not hear, or cry to you violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise." Habakkuk's words are a raw and honest expression of the pain and anguish that Hamas inflicts upon both individuals and societies. And in the book of Ezekiel, we find a stark warning about the consequences of Hamas. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 23 states, "The time is coming when I will bring such disaster on Jerusalem that everyone will be appalled. They will not be able to escape because of all the detestable sins they have committed." This passage serves as a chilling reminder that Hamas, left unchecked, can lead to the downfall of individuals, communities, and even entire nations. Throughout the Old Testament, one theme emerges with unwavering clarity: God abhors Hamas. He is a God of justice, righteousness, and compassion, and he will not tolerate violence, oppression, or the perversion of justice. His stance on Hamas is unequivocal. It is an abomination, a stench in his nostrils, a perversion of his divine order. This divine condemnation of Hamas is evident in God's covenant with Noah after the flood. In Genesis chapter 9 verse 6, God declares, "Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image." This verse underscores the sanctity of human life created in the image of God and establishes the principle of accountability for acts of violence. Moreover, the Mosaic Law, with its emphasis on social justice and the protection of the vulnerable, stands as a testament to God's hatred of Hamas. The law includes provisions for the fair treatment of widows, orphans, and foreigners, those often most susceptible to exploitation and oppression. It condemns bribery, which perverts justice, and calls for the equitable distribution of resources. The prophets, often serving as God's mouthpiece to the people, consistently rail against Hamas in all its forms. They denounce the exploitation of the poor, the oppression of the weak, and the perversion of justice by the powerful. They remind the people that true worship of God is inseparable from just and compassionate living. In essence, God's stance on Hamas is clear. It is an affront to his character, a violation of his created order, and a barrier to true fellowship with him. He calls his people to reject violence, pursue justice, and live lives characterized by compassion and righteousness. I know it is hard sometimes to live a godly life, and that is why we need a Savior. A Savior is what we have in Jesus Christ. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more studies on the Bible.